we're going to do an America update because America seems to be doing pretty damn well. But also, following my video yesterday, I kind of felt like I was taken advantage of by the way that Gallup structured their stories. Because upon further investigation, I found out that while conservative states do outnumber liberal ones, the Democratic Party outnumbers the Republican Party. So there are people who are not voting, and this is really important. But let's start with a general update, because not only did Trump's approval rating shoot straight up following the State of the Union, very, very good news. Look, I mean, you were down around here about 40.8, it looks like, at its lowest, and it shot up to 44.3, I believe, at its peak. It's down a little bit, a few points now. Not the highest it's ever been, right? When he first started, he was pretty high at 46, and his disapproval was actually relatively low. I don't know if there was a point where his approval was ever higher than his disapproval, though. But we can see his disapproval has also gone down quite a bit. Well, that's good news for Trump. The reason I want to bring this up is because there's going to be a bit of speculation going into 2020. And my God, it's only February of 2019, and we're already talking about 2020. But good news for America from Gallup. Americans' perception of U.S. world image best since 2003. I like Gallup. I think they're relatively credible, but they did split this story up about Democrat versus conservative because it's party versus ideology, which, okay, that kind of bothered me. But let's first look at how people feel about America. I think America's fantastic. I've been around the world. I've been to horrible places. In my opinion, many people on the left are only anti-America because they haven't actually traveled outside of this country and they don't really know what's going on in the world. Most Americans don't even have passports. I also believe that there are a lot of people in this country who are conservative and love America equally because they haven't gone outside of the country. It's very, very nuanced. When you pay attention to international news, you will likely start to dislike America. When you go and actually experience outside of the United States, you really, really love America. And I've been to some places where I've had a Molotov cocktail held next to my face and threatened in a language I didn't understand. I've seen people die. And when I go to some of these countries where it's very, very dangerous, there's guns, going off, I come back to the U.S. and I'm like, God damn. You walk outside wearing a t-shirt without a care in the world. Crime exists here. It does. But man, I've been to some places, I will tell you. So let's read this. 58% of Americans believe the U.S. rates very or somewhat favorably in the world's eyes. Though the current figure is up just slightly from the 55% recorded last year, it represents the highest figure Gallup has found since 2003. And look at this. In 2000, just before 2001, it was at 73% for total favorability. And then it dropped down, probably from the Iraq War. There were massive protests. For a period around 2008, unfavorability was very high, probably the economic crisis. And then in 2017, favorability went down, and now it's back up. This is more news that I'm bringing this up. It's more news for the Trump era and may reflect very, very well on Donald Trump. There was a period where favorability was only slightly higher, and it went down probably after Trump got elected. But something flipped, and now favorability is back positive, the highest since 2003. Think about that. You had Obama, you had Bush, yet for some reason, perception of how the United States rates in the world's eyes, people today feel that the United States is doing a better job in terms of building up the confidence of other countries. The reason this is important is because of the trade war, North Korea, people saying that Trump is threatening our allies, like he's going to pull out. Why is he doing this? When in reality, most people feel like we're actually doing a good job. It doesn't mean we are. But we've got Trump's approval rating up. We've got American favorability is up. This is really, really good news for Donald Trump. It's not the only reason why I think Trump's on track to win. And I am not saying this because I like the man. People don't seem to realize, like people on the left particularly, they said, oh, Tim's presenting data from Gallup that is good news for Republicans, therefore he must be. It's like, oh, please, dude. Come on. It's like people don't want to accept that you might actually be losing this one. Most Democrats want to go moderate. You're losing this one. More conservative states outnumbering liberal than ever. You're losing this one. Admittedly, though, to that point, let's get into the speculation about where politics is headed. So first, I'll show this story. This is the video I did yesterday, and I saw this. It was from a story that was being shared. I thought it was interesting, and I pulled up some data and some points why I thought it was. And I'm kind of upset because they separated the story into a different story. Democratic states exceed Republican states by 4 in 2018. So the difference here, when it comes to ideology, whether you feel that you're a conservative or a liberal, conservatives outnumber liberals in 19 states. In fact, there are only 6 states where liberals outnumber conservatives. But when it comes to party affiliation, Democrats exceed Republicans by 4. So this is actually really important. It's going to it's not going to say anything positive or negative necessarily. There's 2 points here. Coming into 2020, if Trump doesn't get non-voters to support him, he will lose because registered Democrats exceed registered Republicans in several states. Now, what states are they? Let's look at the graph. Michigan and Pennsylvania are extremely important for Trump in 2020. So if the Democrats are, if Michigan and Pennsylvania are leaning Democrat, this is bad news for Trump. We can see New Mexico is blue. When it comes to voting, if more people go to vote, you don't win. It doesn't matter what you think you are. So when we look at this, we can see New Mexico leans conservative. It means there are a lot of conservatives who aren't voting or aren't registered Republicans. And that's why these states probably swing blue. This chart looks like really good news for the Republicans and for Trump. A lot of people are saying the Senate races reflect the next presidential election. If that's true, Republicans took, I think they took 1 seat in the midterm last year. If that's true, then Trump is on track. When we look at the amount of conservatives, Republicans are going to need to focus on getting these conservatives to vote. Michigan and Pennsylvania right now are leaning Democratic in terms of party membership. And Trump only won, I think, Michigan by like a tiny fraction of votes, which means if he can light up the non-voting base, which he did in 2016, which is likely why Michigan may have won, he can possibly swing New Mexico. I don't know if he can. I don't know, ultimately what will happen. The point is, there's more data here than just what was presented. So first, we can look at this big list. And again, I went over this in my other video, but we can see that for the most part, like most states, heavily conservative, Mississippi being the most, and the least is Massachusetts, heavily favoring Democrats. But here's the thing. This is what's really interesting. The most conservative state, Mississippi, is 50% conservative. The least is Massachusetts at 21%. However, Massachusetts is the most liberal only at 35%, and its lowest is 12%. That means way more people tend to be conservative. My conclusion based on this, there are more people willing to say they're Republicans. It may speak to a few things. As I outlined in my video yesterday, I think independents and moderate Democrats have been pushed away. When I look at who's running the Democratic Party, when I look at Cortez, one thing I pointed out in my last video is that I think conservatives are propping her up to make the Democrats look crazy. Thus, people who are in a similar space to me, who probably voted for Obama, might now be like, who's the closest to my politics? And when they look at the Democratic Party, they see Cortez and they say, no, thank you. The DSA people are marching around with signs saying no borders. Well, then we don't have a country, right? So then they look to their right and they see a moderate Republican who might be pro-life and they go, oof, I really don't like that, but at least they're talking about bringing jobs back. Abortion doesn't affect everybody. Open borders does. Whether or not the Democrats actually support open borders isn't the point. That's the perception. When you have this many conservatives compared to liberals, it would seem that the problem is something isn't speaking to conservatives, and thus the liberals are winning. But more importantly, too, there's a lot to consider in terms of how the Electoral College functions. It's competitive in Texas between Democrat and Republican. That's really interesting because Texas tends to be red. Trump's going to need to flip Michigan. He's going to need to make sure he lights up these conservatives who might not be voting. But something else really interesting here. The reason why I think this map may still be more important and why I will stand by my video from yesterday is that I don't think party necessarily matters. There are a lot of people who were Democrats who wanted to support Bernie, who did support Bernie, and then voted for Trump. There are some states where you have to register for your party before you vote. But this is what matters more to me. Trump triggered a bunch of people who never vote into voting. There were places that during the 2016 election in California that were always, just blue and just flipped red instantly when Trump convinced people who don't vote to vote. I lived in Florida, and we can see here, ideologically, it's about average between the two. In Florida, I went to a Trump rally. Almost every single person I talked to at that rally said they never voted before and they weren't Republicans. Trump got a bunch of people to now identify as conservative. And this may be why conservative states greatly outnumber liberal states. It also may explain this map, because these people might not register for a party or even believe they're Republicans. They might just not like the Democrats. Even if you're a Democrat, I think this map doesn't do enough to show the Democrats are in a healthy position. A lot of Democrats feel betrayed by the far left, and a lot of people who vote Republican aren't registered Republican unless they have to be, and there are even people who have defected. Ultimately, what can we see? Well, Democratic states do outnumber Republican states, but Trump isn't a traditional Republican. Conservative states outnumber liberal states, and that I think is more important. I'm going to wrap it up here, but I just want to point out one more time, Trump's approval rating is up. Americans think, for the most part, that America looks pretty good, and conservatives are outnumbering liberal states. I think this is good news for Republicans coming into 2020, and it's not because I like Republicans, although the far left is going to be like, oh, he's talking about Republicans. Look, listen. If they're winning the fight and the data I'm looking at suggests it, and you think my logic is sound, follow my logic. If you think I'm wrong, comment and tell me why I'm wrong. But if the Democrats don't form a coalition and come together around sensible ideas, they won't win. Considering how many Democrats are running, it sounds like none of them agree with each other, and they haven't figured out who the leader is going to be. To me, they won't win 2020. Maybe if they can get their act together in the next 6 years, maybe 2020, 2024. But anyway, I'll wrap that up here. Stick around. I got one more video coming up in just a few minutes.